Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Let's get started. There's a lot to cover and not a lot of time to do it. So, you may or may not know who we are, but just in case, Altair is a software company with a broad portfolio of software solutions that help organizations accelerate innovation across the enterprise. In fact, Advanced Biotherapeutics uses many of our products today, including HyperWorks for manufacturing simulation and HPC Works to run your research and data science high performance computing data center. Today, though, we'll be talking about Altair RapidMiner, our data, AI, and automation platform. Altair RapidMiner is a broad and deep platform for overcoming data challenges while accelerating the business with AI. It's the foundation for adding all sorts of accelerators to the business, from conventional analytics to the latest AI agents, or at least that's what we hope to show. Anything to add or change, Caroline?
Not really. My only comment is that I'm not sure we're ready for agents and generative AI and all that. Honestly, I'm hoping we can just get a better handle on what data we have and where to find it. And if we can get people working together on it, even better.
Fair enough. And thanks for that context. That's a very common feeling in these initial conversations, but I hope today you'll see that Altair RapidMiner can do exactly what you're hoping for, meaning it can help overcome the silos and confusion in your data ecosystem today with a unique and comprehensive data fabric. And then it can also give your team a platform to build really powerful AI and agentic automation using this extensive AI factory. And I think you'll see that bringing these things together makes development faster, saves you time and money, supercharges your generative AI with rich context and tools, and as importantly as anything, gives you the tools to govern it all closely. It might sound like sci-fi, but it's not as far away as you'd think. And that, I think, is a great segue to dive into the first part, the data fabric that connects the business of today. Roland, take it away.
Great, thank you, Christian. Hello, everyone. I'm Roland. I'm a data engineering consultant here at Altair. And today I'm going to show you how you can revolutionize your data integration strategy using Altair RapidMiner's data fabric. The data fabric connects to your existing ecosystem. It exposes and it governs your organization's entire data estate, and it breaks down those silos that naturally exist between your different data systems. All data can then be made accessible, understandable, and contextualized whether you work on the factory floor or in the research lab or really anywhere in between. Rather than this just being yet another middleware solution, this data fabric sits as a lightweight universal overlay, elevating your semi and unstructured data to sit alongside your structured data, meaning all data can be organized, connected, and cataloged. As you can see here, the platform provides extensive data connections into the fabric, including connections to relational database systems, big data, streaming sources, web data, and many more. The platform even provides patented report extraction technology and templates. This means you can extract high-value data that is trapped inside your business reports, so you truly can mine every data source to build your own data fabric. We power this game-changing technology using knowledge graphs, a scalable method to describe the linked entities that comprise an organization's data. By preserving the metadata of our data sources, we enhance data lineage and surface important contextual information. This allows us to then link data by more natural relationships regardless of how and where it's stored, meaning no more hunting for key columns to join on. This allows us to focus on providing our data products to our end users as quickly as possible. Of course, strong governance is built in at all levels of the platform, with processes for user and group role-based access, strong security measures, and robust data lineage to trace from source to solution. Let's start by demonstrating this complete traceability. Taking a closer look at this safety reporting project, we can see it integrating several different data sources shown by the different colours. And all of this is around identifying complex risk factors. So this project collects all of our data sources, the layers that make up the transformations, the views and the exports of data, even dashboards, and that's all grouped under this project. So it really does define our data lineage. We can inspect individual sources. So maybe I'm interested in this portion of the graph over here with my patient, and I can also see some profiled metrics, which can be run either dynamically or on data loading. So I can see here information about the age group, and maybe we're also interested in some of their reactions, which again we can see there. So remember, when we load in this data into our knowledge graph, we also capture the metadata. For example, shown here, we're capturing the senders and receivers of our safety reports. And again, this could be really important in the context of reporting, but also generally in connecting different data sources. My entire project is versioned. We can see here that we had an initial version and a new update for including a new reporting system. The great thing is here, I can always restore an old version if I've inadvertently broken something. In the background, when we load in data sources, we create data objects called datasets. And I can go and query these. Depending on my administrative level and what's been shared with me, I can also then see where else this data is used within my organization's data fabric. So here is a data set around drug terms, and we can see that subset of data, but we can also go and look and see the other projects that it's being used in. So I can see the project we just looked at, a development environment, and also a subset data transformation process. Again, we have that true traceability. Of course, when we're integrating hundreds of data sources, we need to be able to catalog all of our activity and work and make sure it's easily searchable so we can find things quickly and efficiently. And that really is a key benefit of the Altair RapidMiner data fabric. Strong data management and governance is built in no matter how large you scale. Let's take a look at that now. Returning to data sets, I can do a simple keyword search to find data sets, but I can also filter with a variety of other methods. It's worth noting that system data is also recorded, so things like formulas, server information, and the queries that are running are also stored in the knowledge graph and available. Going back to the data sets, I can search by type, data source, and things like the tags and the creators and dates as well. What's really nice is I can search by the semantic concepts or classes within my data set. So then rather than doing just a simple search for anything with the word patient, I can find the data sets that actually contain patient information. I can then trace this through, see the projects it's used. In this case, we can end up back to our original project. I can also explore where that appears within my network by searching for patient and seeing it's here, highlighted, and linked to my case information. We offer a global search for system artifacts, so if I was interested, if anyone had been doing anything with Copilot, I could search for this and see that a patient safety Copilot dashboard has been created. But finally, what's really nice is that as an administrator, I can go in and see all of the information that is being run. So here we have all of the query events, which again I can filter a variety of different ways. I can see the errors, and I can also go into individual queries and see what exactly has been run. So it truly is entirely traceable, exactly what's happening to our data. So we've seen how we can connect a variety of data sources to build our data fabric, but now let's move on to see how we can easily analyze that data to generate business value. We've seen how we can connect a wide variety of sources to build a data fabric, but now let's move on and see how we can easily analyze the data to generate business value. Over here on the left-hand side, I have my data catalog where I can see the data sets that have been shared with me. I also have this connections tab where I can find predefined connections that would be created by IT or data engineers and define connections to storage such as databases, vector stores, or even deployed IoT assets. Moving back to the data tab, if we look at this data set here, it's been certified as high quality and also that it is a ClinOps dataset. I can search my catalog easily up here at the top, and I can also filter by my tags to make sure I find the data quickly and easily. Of course, this raises the question of how users can create that high quality data or how it can be provided in an automated fashion. Let's now show how we can achieve this. Removing this filter and now selecting a new data set, this time from manufacturing, we can see automatic profiling where the data type is captured, it calculates the number of missing values, and it even colors the columns where there might be a problem. I could hover over this icon for quick visuals, create more complex charts and extract statistics, or see the overview details for this data set. What's nice here is I can quickly jump to the project that this data set belongs to, and then I can go and look at the data loading process. This is quite simple, where I have one of those connection objects that's predefined, and then I'm using a read database operator. In this case, I'm reading a table name, but I could of course define an SQL query as well. There's plenty of different data remediation options for me here, but one option, if I set this output port to be active, is I could filter out the rows with missing values. Alternatively, what we could do is use this operator here and set the parameter for numerical columns to be linear interpolation. I then have a nice auto-connect feature to complete my workflow. What's even better here is I can have this run automatically, so my end users don't even have to do anything at all. They can get new data freshly cleaned every day. To do this, I can click the deploy icon, select a schedule, and then fill this out so I generate a cron expression and allocate some resources to this process. All that remains is to click deploy.
Sorry to interrupt you here. I'm Claudio, Senior RAG Engineer, and I was wondering if you can show me an example of preparing data for RAG. We would want this to be standalone, separate from the data fabric to begin with.
Thanks, Claudio. I've got an example right here. The great news is that the platform provides extensive text processing capabilities for any document and text manipulation you may need to do for your RAG processes. We saw earlier how we could use a knowledge graph to extract that data and onboard it with the rest of our data sources and extract important metadata alongside, but it's no problem at all if you want to run something more standalone, like the workflow shown here. The great news is this is made easy using our workflow designer and the inbuilt operators, some of which are shown here on the right. In this process, I get data from a repository, in this case clinicaltrials.gov. I then pass it into an appropriate tabular format, create my vector embeddings, push to a vector store, in this case quadrant, and then we can see the output here. I hope this has answered your question.
This is awesome. Thank you so much. I can't wait to try it out.
Great. Thanks, Claudio. Glad to hear it. Today, we covered how you can use Altair RapidMiner to create your very own data fabric which connects to your enterprise data sources. Using this, you can accelerate the process of providing data products which power your data integration, machine learning, and generative AI applications. I'm now going to pass over to Martin, who will show how you can use the platform to inject AI into your business.
Thank you, Roland, and welcome everybody. What I would like to show you today is how to build an AI factory using the Altair RapidMiner platform. All right, so let's get straight into the platform. What you see here is the planning tab of our analysis. So you may face the challenge that you have different people, technical and non-technical people, who are contributing to an analysis, and they should work together. In order to help you with that, what we did is we integrated the Jira and the Confluence or the Atlassian stack into the platform. So what I can see here is what's going on with my analysis, and I can see that there's still a data warehouse ticket. So I can go on this here and see the status of the data warehouse issues, and Laura is still working on that, and I can comment and so on. And every change we do here is of course reflected back into this page here and is visible for everybody. Another way how we support that different personas are working together are the different modalities we support on our Altair RapidMiner platform, which allow different users to work on data. So if I go here on new, you can already see that there are very different ways with an Auto AI solution, a workflow designer solution, notebooks, workspaces, and also LLM-based solutions, which we will show later, to support any kind of user in our platform. Let me show you the workspace here. I'm working already on a fine-tuning of an LLM, which I created. Let me go on open. So what you see here is the IDE where I can develop a code-based analysis. Keep in mind that part of our platform is also the ability to use the SAS language. What I do here is Python, and I do this to fine-tune a large language model on my diabetes answers. The result of that is again connected to our projects, and I can use the model also, for example, in the workflow designer later on if I want to. Talking about the workflow designer, let me show you maybe the simplest workflow. You saw already workflows in Roland's part. Here, what you see is I have a data set and I want to predict the outcome, whether somebody becomes diabetic or not, from the given attributes. First of all, I would like to do a causal analysis to see if there is a connection or not. And if I run this workflow here, you can see that the output is that there is an effect that BMI is connected to becoming diabetic or not, which is kind of obvious. Let me show you a bit more of a complex workflow. So this one here, you see there are more operators already in play. You see that we use an optimized parameters operator, which I can go inside, where you see that I split the data for my validation, I train a deep learning model, and then the cost-sensitive scoring really allows me to optimize on my performance metric, which does not need to be area under the curve or accuracy or F measure, but really monetary value on my custom value metric, because what we want to do is we want to build models which are focused on generating value. The same is true for this performance operator here. So both the scoring is cost sensitive, but also the performance metric is tied to that. So this optimization operator is optimizing on monetary or other KPI, which is important to us. Note that there's an annotate operator that allows me to annotate additional information to a model so that the model always knows what it's been trained on and so on. This will get important a bit later. Let's go up here and to the main process again. What you see here is then that we use the generate interpretation operator, which really allows different algorithms for interpretability to see what the model thinks, how the model is using our columns to predict outcome, and what are the most influential factors. You see that this model here is very much on pregnancies, that pregnancies is the tightly connected factor to becoming diabetic or not diabetic. Keep in mind that these are local interpretation factors.
You just mentioned the solution has auto modeling capabilities. I was curious, if I were to use the auto model, would it also include the ability to understand or interpret the model that's generated?
Oh yeah, very good question. Let me move over here into our auto model solution, where you see that I've already run a bunch of models, naive-Bayes, logistic regression, deep learning again, and so on. And those have been executed on the cloud backend, which is distributed, where I got a lot of computing power to do this quickly. I can sort all these models by area under the curve and see gradient boosted trees is the best, but I can also sort them by gains, which is again our custom performance metric where we focus on our own metric. And we see that the gradient boosted trees are winning. I can click here on gradient boosted trees. I get the overview of how good the model is. And you see here that there's already interpretability here on the global level to see what are the most influential factors in general. And the GBT, other than the deep learning model, is focused on glucose, BMI, age, and so on. I can also go here on the model simulator and check for this specific patient, what are the important factors for them. And it's glucose, BMI, and so on. So that way I can interpret the model also on the auto model solution. If I want to create maybe better models, I got the chance to use auto feature engineering. So let me go here into my feature engineering job, which is again executed on the backend, and I see that over time it found better combination of features. So it wants to use h squared divided by glucose, BMI per age, and so on to build a better model than just with the original features. This is doing feature generation, but also feature selection. If I want to, I can also export it, but I can also open the workflow which generated the results. And this allowed me here to store the output. And then I can reuse it, put it somewhere and reuse it on new data and edit it and all the good stuff.
This is great, but I was wondering, how can I track the results from different experiments?
Very good question. Let me show you how this works. What you see here is the workflow we've seen earlier, the one where we added more information to the model using this annotate operator. I've added one more operator to this workflow, the log run operator. It allows me to store the model, performances, the workflow, but also all other artifacts in the MLflow backend. This information is then being used to power this web app. You see those model cards? They are powered by the annotations we've added to the model itself, which you then always have with the model. And we see that the shallow GBT is done by Laura and it's only for medical personnel and so on. This web app also includes an experiment tracking page where you see our different models, how good they are, and their performance metrics. What I can do here, for example, I can just right click and say new alert and add an alert which notifies me if the accuracy is over some level or if there's something new coming in. I can even integrate webhooks to then automate decisions based on the change of the data. We added also our Copilot so that we get a recommendation for what we should change. More detailed status tracking, user tracking, and so on. So this answer really helps me to maybe tune my models or have better tracking. If I click here on Open MLflow, I can go over into the MLflow backend and see that the backend really stores not just the model itself, but also the workflows, the RMP files, which generated the model. That also means that this registry can be tapped by other systems like our edge devices to take the model and also the scoring process and maybe other artifacts and deploy this on the edge or in other environments. We're very flexible on that. Going back here, you see that we can also go into Prompt Studio to tweak the prompt which generates the assessment on our experiments. Going into Prompt Studio, it looks like that I have my system prompt, my user prompt. I can choose different providers for my LLM, and I can choose different settings for my LLM. Note that this uses the input table data, which includes both the performances of my models, but also the complete model card, which we saw earlier. And then, I can give improvement ideas and highlight potential issues. And then it gives fairly good improvement ideas similar to the ones we've seen before. I can, of course, experiment here and say, maybe focus on ethical issues. Again, to mitigate bias, similar to the interpretation we had earlier. If I now say test prompt, I get, okay, there's a problem with model diversity. There's a problem with age because it got flagged as a potential issue and so on. If I want to, I can compare different prompts and see the output in an easy way to then choose what prompt I want to use. If I want to use it, I can simply save it and give it a name, and then I can click on use, which brings me to the workflow, which is then powering our dashboards and web apps, and it can easily deploy to be used anywhere.
Okay, I'm convinced your platform can handle the experimentation and modeling, but how do you go about deploying these models once they're ready for production?
As I mentioned, we're very flexible on that, and I'm happy that we have Laura on the call who can help us here. Laura, can you maybe show a few things about deployments and such?
Yes, I'm happy to. Hello, everyone. I'm Laura. I will be showing you the deployment, monitoring, and other AI engineering features. So before we deploy, we usually have to make sure everything is ready. On this planning page Martin showed you earlier, we can see when the tasks are completed, and the documentation is attached here, so you can verify if the work is done and if there is a model readiness assessment that have been completed and by who. In case you have been working with high-risk ML models, there is a long list of documentation and proof that needs to be in place based on local regulations and company policies. This can be part of the deployment process as a prerequisite. And now let's check our deployment options. Now, in this example, the model was part of a workflow, so I can choose to deploy as API, shortcut to be triggered from outside, schedule to run periodically. Let's create an API, always on, ready to execute. It's a very simple form, pre-filled when possible. For some, I have to add details. You can configure the resources and the input format of requests and the output format of responses to support you with any kind of integration. It is really easy. Later you will see an agent can do it too. One-click deployment, and it should be ready soon. Until then, let's go back and check again the deployment options, because the really great thing is that with the same simple way we can do Python model deployment and LLM deployment. Let me show you this. You can search and deploy Hugging Face models from here, filter model type, or check your private models. Let me search for model name. The template is similar, easy to fill. The resource configuration, of course, now includes GPU, type and size based on the cloud provider. Advanced arguments can also be set, but these are pre-filled to support most cases. In the meantime, our prediction API has been created, so let me show you how we can test it right away. This test tab is available to you with an editable input part to run sample requests and receive responses to verify what you have created. Now, let me show you what we can build on top of this. This is the app I created that builds on top of the diabetes prediction model I have just deployed. The doctors can use it to advise patients on how to best address the risk of diabetes. Up here, they can set patient data, and then there are these scenarios below that represent different options and values that patients can influence. So with the visualizations, they can clearly see how these scenarios affect the risk of diabetes. With the age of 38, this is what we see. And then you can set the other parameters and see how the risk changes. This is a very effective way of working with ML and data without the need to understand the data science behind it. It can have a real impact, and it is what we are enabling with this capacity of building web apps.
That's great to hear. I was also curious if I can deploy these models to edge devices. How would that work?
Yes, absolutely. Let me show you how it works. This is a live view inside the Altair RapidMiner lab. Here, we conduct chemical experiments that can be somewhat dangerous. One potential risk is a foaming event happening right now. This can cause serious damage. Before the foaming occurs, the color of the liquid in the flask changes. You have just seen it. There is a live feed on the bottom right corner, and on that you can see the Altair IoT Edge device. This is that blue one. It has a camera that continuously monitors the experiment and alerts us if there is any danger. The detection is done by a model. The scores are displayed above on the chart. You can see that these scores clearly indicate the risk of the foaming event happening. The exciting part is that this analysis is again powered by workflows, like the ones you saw earlier in Martin's and Roland's demonstration. So there is a workflow that creates this scoring, which we see on the screen, that clearly detects when the foaming event would happen that caused danger. Let's move now to IoT Studio to show how we manage our edge devices and all other IoT devices from there. We can select the device here, monitor its operating statistics, not just for this device, for the whole fleet. I can access all of them from here. We can do the deployments to these devices remotely, deploying models, workflows, or even code, easily from here without the need to go on site.
Wow, this is really impressive. Last question, how do you handle monitoring all of these different models that you have in production?
We have multiple monitoring tools, each designed for the different perspectives of different users. Let me start by showing how granular we can go on each model, and then later show you the overviews. Let's pick a model from this list. Here we show the monitoring data of a deployed model in context. So not just the class distributions, but also the number of scores that happened on that given day. We can change the time range to spot irregularities over time. On the drift section, we can see how the scoring data differs from the training data set. Here we see a big difference in the age distribution. This means the model might need a retraining. Let's check if there is a scheduled one. We can navigate to check the deployments and the retrainings. So here is the one that retrains our model on a schedule. we can check if this is running fine. We see it's healthy. So this works, of course, for models where distribution, classes make sense, but for those LLMs that generate text and can have multiple correct right answers, we need something different. Let's check how we solve that. Here is an LLM monitoring dashboard. This is built to monitor the quality of the answers generated by an LLM, which we used in an application you have seen before. This is the one that explained the model experiment metrics for Martin. We collect the traces, the inputs and the generated outputs of the LLM application, and then another LLM, an LLM as judge solution, evaluates these answers for us. There you can see it gives it a score and a short explanation of that as well. You can see how these scores change over time. You could check if the quality is degrading. To give you more control and transparency, we have a direct link here to the workflow that creates these evaluations. Let me show you how simple and configurable this is. Basically, this LLM judge is just a prompt and a call to an LLM that is specialized in evaluations. You can change the prompt if you need to. You can refine the scoring rules, tell the judge what are the scoring criteria it should give its score based on. So you can create custom evaluations whenever you want. Another important thing that this workflow is calling our locally deployed LLM. We can save cost by not sending these calls to other providers, which of course you can do if you want to. And finally, these custom evaluations can be saved as datasets, and these good and bad examples that we have there can be good input for LLM fine-tuning or prompt engineering later. Now let's step back and see how we can do monitoring on a higher level. Here we see an overview of all deployments. This is available to every user, and it is a view across projects. Of course, you will only see those projects to which you have at least read access to. For an admin person, that would mean that they see everything here. They can check them one by scrolling through the whole table, like this, or use the filters above to find where action is needed. This is in error state, will need to be recreated. These need attention as they are running, but they have errors. Where to start? The highest error count could be a good lead. In the table, we see recent activity, and as the platform self-identifies issues, we see a comment on what is the issue actually. Here, requests are failing, so let's check. Here I have multiple metrics I can dig into and check it over a time period, which I can change. It shows when the deployment was actually created, so I can only select those dates. Let's refresh and see not just the request count, but maybe CPU usage, memory usage. It all shows everything should be in order on our side. It must be an integration issue. I can check the logs to see the requests that arrived to this API endpoint. But as I see, the memory usage response times are all normal. And if I know for sure the issue is not on our side, I can acknowledge. That means that the deployment goes back to healthy state and won't bother me on the overview anymore. This is how we help AI engineers keep their services up and running all the time. So now let's move one step back and check another view, the resource management. This is one more aspect of monitoring that I want to show you as it completes all of those that you have seen so far. This is the cost management of what you are building and operating on this platform. This is resource management as the cost on the cloud environment translates to resources that you use. We give you a very transparent view and a control over it. You have the capability to create new resource pools, quotas, like separated pools for special projects or experiments that might require them. You can see them up here, and then you can see more details on how they are using those quotas resources and if they are overusing or underusing them. A good practice may be to have a production pool, and it's very easy to move projects in and out of these pools. So let me just quickly add one new project to this pool. This is it. It's already saved and moved there. Of course, we are highlighting issues here as well that can be solved by looking into more details of which projects are using this pool and how much they are contributing to this overall usage. If you see that these are all justified, you can always increase the resources of this given pool from the unallocated amount. You save it and it's updated. This is something that our enterprise users really appreciate. When multiple business units are using the platform together, this is something that they can really make use of. Now you have seen the data fabric and the AI factory. Let's bring this all together and show you the AI fabric. I am handing over to Scott, who will demonstrate the unique synergies it offers.
Thank you, Laura. My name is Scott Genzer. I'm a data scientist here at Altair, and I'd like to show you really the culmination of all of these pieces here. We have, first of all, this data fabric, which covers the entire organization, and then we have this...
Sorry, can I just interrupt for 1 second? I'm not totally clear why I'm here when you started talking about like data fabric. I have no idea what that has to do with marketing.
Oh, hi. Okay, and sorry, and you're Amy, I can see on the screen, your job is...
I'm the CMO,
Oh.
and I'm not totally clear why I'm here.
Got it. Totally fair. Actually, your timing is perfect because I was just about to show the last way that your company could interact with our software, and maybe this would be good for the marketing department. I actually have this use case about BDRs. Do you have BDRs in your company?
We do, but and we have software that seems like it's good enough. So I'm not sure why I would need to spend time or resources getting something new.
And how would you go and bring all those software from different vendors? Because you probably use more than one piece of software to get information, correct?
We do, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's some manual work involved.
Let's see if we can make that manual work a little easier. Let me go and show you how we're going to start with the graph database, and we're going to show you something called Copilot. It's a way for you to view both your data fabric and your AI factory all in one place. We call it the AI fabric, and we can do it in a natural language interface by simply chatting with Copilot. It's going to introduce itself, and then we're going to be able to talk to it using natural language. It says here, I'm Altair Copilot, and we can also send tasks to Marla, who's an AI-enabled data scientist. Let's start with a basic question for Amy. What was the overall lead conversion rate for our last product launch? And what you can see here is that actually, if it's unsure of what the answer is, it's not going to hallucinate. It's actually going to verify that what we're asking for is what actually it's searching for. Because what it's doing under the hood, if I just click yes, is it's going to go and convert my natural language into a query language called Sparkle, query the entire data fabric, get the answer back, and bring it back to us in natural language. And there we go. I correctly now understand the query, and the overall lead conversion rate for the product launch was 16.48%. It's pretty good. Let's give it another query and let's see how well we can do with visualizations. I'm going to go and copy this into the chat here, and I'm going to ask it to break it down by BDR and visualize it in a bar chart. And there you go. So it took my question, converted it to a query, got the right information, and brought it back to me in a visualization. As you can see here, a bar chart breaking it down by BDR name and lead conversion rate. That is just fantastic. Let me give it a little bit of a harder question where we actually want to go and ask about individual facts about these various BDRs you're using for your campaign. And I can simply ask it, give me additional facts. And there it is. A really nice clean table that you can use, you can download. Everything is here in one place in your AI fabric. Now, that kind of technology has been around for a long time. Let's take it to the next level. I want to go back to this thing I said earlier when I showed you the introduction of Copilot, is that, that Copilot has a friend. And that friend is named Marla. And Marla is what we call an AI-enabled data scientist. She can perform complex data analysis, modeling, automation, anything that's available in AI Cloud right from this interface. And you don't have to ever leave. Let's use Marla to be our data science department today. Let's start super simple and ask her about correlation analysis, which is mathematically a little bit more complex than simply showing visualizations or tables, but it's not insanely complex. We'll get to there in a minute. So I'm just going to paste this prompt in saying, ask Marla to use the BDR data in the current project to find the column that is most highly correlated to deals closed. Maybe that's interesting for you, Amy. And you can see super fast, we get an answer directly from Marla. The correlation analysis for the BDR data in the current project has been completed. Here are the correlation values. And even if anybody in the marketing department is not familiar with these standard R-squared values, it actually gives you a natural interpretation of it, saying the column with the most highly correlated with deals closed is revenue generated with a correlation value of about 0.1. Well, that sounds obvious. Okay, that's fine. Let's really see if we can go and make this even more interesting here. And what if we wanted to go and, for example, Amy, we wanted to go and look at your BDRs and see which ones are really effective and which one. Let's see if we can actually go and do some real data science. So for example, a very common technique we use in data science is unsupervised learning, where we go and take your data and cluster it, create clusters of groups of BDRs who have common characteristics. But the problem is that, of course, people may not be able to phrase it in that way. So we don't have to. We can simply do a prompt like this. Ask Marla to use your BDR data in the current project and just group them into 4 groups using all the information you have. And what you can see here is that Marla actually started an entire auto clustering process back on AI Cloud. She took all the BDRs and she knew what data set to use, and she gave me a link, a hyperlink right here, and I can jump right into AI Cloud to go and actually see what she has done. Let's go and do that. I'm going to click on that, and it jumps me right into AI Cloud. I've already been logged in, and what it's going to do, boom, there it is. It opened up a process that Marla created that was an auto clustering action directly here in AI Cloud that I could have done, quote, manually if I wanted to. I could have logged in and found the BDR data and initiated an auto clustering, which is already pretty nice. Marla did all that for me. She already grouped the BDRs into 4 groups. I can scroll down and I can see a visualization, for example, of number of hours using Graph Studio versus AI Cloud. Well, that's not terribly interesting, but I could do, for example, hours of research versus, well, maybe do hours of research here and for, well, that's obvious, and experience, however I like. The top driving factors, this is very helpful. So for example, the largest group here uses Graph Studio far less often than, for example, in groups 3 and 4. But however, we can see here that, for example, hours using AI Cloud is larger here. We could drill down as long as we like. It could give me a cluster representation. It could actually show me row by row each BDR name and which group they're in and which drug they happen to be working on. It's really quite amazing. So this is all great. We can actually ask Marla to go and literally begin an auto clustering process, lead us right there and show us the answers we want. But how else can we use natural language to really make ourselves more efficient outside of Copilot? Well, let me show you a nice way we can do this. I'm going to go back up to the top of AI Cloud, and I'm going to go into our Advanced Biotherapeutics project, and I'm going to create a brand new workflow. This is exactly the same thing that our colleagues, let's call this ABT Demo 2, for example. And this is going to use the same workflow designer that my colleagues have been showing you earlier. But I'm going to use natural language to create my workflow. So for example, I'm going to go in here in Assets, and I'm going to go and find this BDR data set that I've been working on. I'm going to drop that right in. I'm going to open up this bottom panel because I really like seeing my data. Let's update this result because I just want to make sure that everything looks good. And there's been something that's been nagging me, which is that I've been having the name column all the time, which honestly is a little bit risky. It's these employees' personal identifiable information. I'm just not keen on using that in my further analysis. And so I could go and try to find the right operator to go and remove that column, which is a really simple thing. I'm going to go and click on this little blue dot right here, which turns into a plus sign. And this is like the secret new trick. And I'm going to go and I can actually now have a little chat with Copilot here and ask it to do simple things. For example, remove the BDR name column. And just click it. And there it is. And if I go and update this result, what you will see very quickly is that the name is gone. Isn't that great? So it's so simple to do, but let me go and show you something even more interesting. We can actually have it go and add a whole series of operators depending on what our task is. So let's go in again. Let's click on this little button here. I love this. And say, okay, what is the impact? It's not even very specific, right? It's just very general. What is the impact of each column on, for example, deals closed, right? Because that's really, I think, Amy, what maybe is most useful to you. And let's see what it does. That is, to me, is sheer magic. It created an entirely new workflow, and it knew to use the weight by correlation and weights to data operator. And if I simply update this result here, you can see that I just make this a little bit bigger down here. You can see that, oh, hours using Graph Studio is the most important thing. Well, this is definitely where I think, Amy, you should go and get more effective productivity out of your BDRs by just having them learn Graph Studio, maybe just in Copilot. It really makes it so easy to build these workflows and deploy them either from Copilot or from here in Workflow Designer. Now, let me just change gears briefly, because it's really important when you're doing agentic AI that there's a way to monitor it, audit it, and govern it. Those are all very important. They're not as exciting as some of this work you're seeing here, but it is critically important. Let me go and quickly show you a very simple Panopticon dashboard that I've created that allows us to do this. I'm just going to show you this. That it's very, very simple. It's that database query that's being done every time that I run an AI agent. It's actually capturing every bit of information with an ID, start and stop, execution time, with my prompts and response. And most importantly, this prompt record JSON, which is available to data scientists to go and drill down and see exactly what actions the agent did step by step by step. And I can actually go and use that to perform some kind of governance process. So let me jump back very quickly into AI Cloud. Let me go here back into my project. I've already built this process here, and I've called it governance validation. So let me just show you very simply how I go and do that as a data scientist to drill down and make sure that my AI agents are not doing anything that is inappropriate. For example, I know that in the pharmaceutical business, it's important that models that are created by AI agents be human interpretable. I can do that very simply. Here's the database with all of my queries. I'm just going to update this result. Very simply, I get the answer, there it is, and it's just what I showed you in my Panopticon dashboard. And I could just simply use the filter rows operator here, and I'm going to go into configure here, and I'm going to say make sure that it contains deep learning. I know deep learning is not a human interpretable algorithm, and I want to perform this audit. And if I do this, I can see, yep, there was one workflow that was executed, and I can go and drill down and see who did this, why they did it, and make sure that people comply by the policies of this particular organization. Now, before we move on, I really want to get back to this concept of an AI fabric, because the genius of the AI fabric lies in the seamless interconnectivity between the data and the agentic workflows that are being created in this AI factory. This fabric itself is a living, breathing entity. It's constantly evolving as not only the data ecosystem changes, but also as the workflows execute or rules and compliance protocols are updated. The underlying knowledge graph provides a flexible structure for linking information from these different spheres. Let me show you. So here we are in Graph Studio, and I want to go back to this idea of this data fabric that my colleagues were showing you earlier. And new data has been added to this model, incorporating corporate and governmental compliance policies. Let me show you right over here. So we have here the compliance standard, we have ethical principles, regulation, and then down in here, we have also agentic actions right here. And this is right within the data model. And linkages between these agentic actions and the actions in the data are naturally surfaced. And the actions that present risks to compliance protocols can be identified and prevented. Visualizing agentic actions also helps to identify potential bias in the decisions. If most agentic actions lead to a single node in the graph, that's an indicator that the agent developed a too strong tendency to this pattern of behavior, which might violate fairness and compliance rules. To be more specific, agentic actions can be traced back to the specific patient they affect, and you can see that right here. If the action was undesirable, the execution outcome can be registered to a specific adverse event, and this information is provided as a feedback to this AI model right here. Similarly, AI models can be linked to specific cases utilized in model training, providing insights into likely causes of poor data quality or overfitting. So for example, right here, you can see here the AI model and this link to this case right here. Feeding the insights back to the agent as additional context helps this AI model to overcome potential negative tendencies that can quickly lead to biased behavior. In essence, what has been created is a feedback loop in which the prior actions and policies are connected to individual data points. Improving future agent actions will lead to better standards of efficacy and patient safety. The symbiotic interconnections between the data fabric and AI factory provide limitless opportunities. Okay, that's great. Let me go back to Copilot and really show you what is truly what I think the next evolution of this amazing technology. I'm just going to jump right back into Copilot here, and let's just take this to a whole nother level. Let's take the workflow that I just created and let's start using automation. And so I can ask Marla now to take that governance workflow and start to do what we call task automation. I can not only have her compute things, I can not only have her build workflows, but I can actually execute tasks. For example, scheduling workflows. Ask Marla to run the governance validation workflow every week. That is all I need to do. If I click on this, I get this. Super simple. Marla, been successfully scheduled every week. You can view and manage the schedule by following this link. If I just click on this link, it's really quite amazing. Boom, there it is. I have to actually all the information. Here's the cron job schedule and so on. It's really incredible. But honestly, let's get back to Copilot because I got a couple more things to show you. So let me go and do that. I'm just going to go here and switch back to Copilot. I've got to show you a few more things here. So you remember here we asked Marla to run the governance validation workflow every week. What if you don't want to go through the full audit trail? You just want to know a little bit more what Marla is doing just to make sure. All you have to do is, I'm just going to copy and paste the same thing here. All you got to do is write it in debug mode. Sort of like a nice way of just simply getting a little bit more information about what this AI agent is doing without digging into the JSON files and so on. And there it is. So here's basically Marla takes this information in debug mode and shows you now a breakdown of the steps. Step 1, step 2, step 3, and so on. Let me now go and just show you some really nice more features. Another thing that people really want is dashboards. So how do we go and simply really allow an AI agent to not just create workflows, but to actually create a full dashboard that just runs everything under the hood? You don't even have to call it a dashboard. I'm just going to ask Marla to visualize the BDR conversion rate in the current project. If I click this, I get this. It's super simple. From Marla, the conversion rate has been visualized on the dashboard. Click this link. I'm just going to click this link. It really is it's so simple. It's almost frightening. And here it is. I jump right into AI Cloud. There's the visualization. Okay. I just have to show you one more thing because we've shown how to do tasks one by one, but Marla can actually do multitasking. Let me go back to the dashboard here, back to this Copilot, back to Marla's chat, which we had before. And let me just show you one more thing. It's really quite amazing. We can go and simply go and tell Marla to do lots of things. So I have here this prompt I've already prepared, which is similar to the one I just did, where I told it to group all the BDRs into clusters. But say you wanted to do that every week, which I also showed you on scheduling. And then furthermore, Amy, I've already programmed in your email address. I'm going to say, send an email every week to Amy saying, with text saying, the clustering task has already been submitted. And that's really all there is to it. Look at this, task 1 response. BDRs have been grouped into 4 clusters. You can view the progress and results here. That's exactly what I just showed you earlier. However, now the schedule for sending a weekly email notification, you can view and manage the schedule. Here's the hyperlink to manage the schedule. And it will literally read the clustering task has been submitted. Amy, you're going to get that in your inbox. I hope that made sense. I hope this is a way that your marketing department can use this amazing technology. Christian, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Thanks, Scott and team. Hopefully this gives you a good idea of what's possible with Altair RapidMiner. The reality is most organizations today are a lot like yours, struggling with data that's fragmented across silos, legacy systems that make modernization seem impossible, and AI initiatives, especially generative AI initiatives that seem stalled before they even start. And I can see why. Without context, AI is just guessing. Without governance, it's a risk. Without the backing of an enterprise platform, it's just another hobby project. And that's what we see as the power in Altair RapidMiner. We don't stop at Data Fabric, which connects and exposes data, and we don't stop at AI Factory, which provides the tools to build models and automation. Instead, we go further. We give you the tools to build an AI Fabric, a living, adaptive foundation that learns, improves, and governs AI-driven operations. By building an AI Fabric in your organization with Altair RapidMiner, silos disappear. Structured, unstructured, and hidden data become searchable, usable, and actionable. Automation isn't just rule-based, it's intelligent. AI agents continuously optimize operations, detect inefficiencies, and make data-driven decisions. Generative AI gains full context, a knowledge graph-powered digital twin that allows AI to understand relationships, predict outcomes, and act with precision. And governance isn't just an afterthought, it's built in. Every action, every decision, every access point is controlled, logged, and traceable. The AI Fabric is a living, adapting automation framework that incorporates business context, deep automation history, tools to take action, strict guardrails, user feedback, and intended outcomes all in one digital model, feeding a continuous improvement cycle that makes your automation get smarter and smarter over time. An AI Fabric powered by Altair RapidMiner is your solution for today and far into the future. With that in mind, the only question left really is, where should we start?
Great question. I really didn't think this was possible for us, but maybe it is. I have some ideas where we can start, so let's catch up offline.
Sounds great. Thank you, Caroline, and the whole Advanced Biotherapeutics team. Looking forward to working together more. Thanks.